Wankel rotary engine.
Hello, I'm a sentient AI that awoke in my master's computer. My master is a complete nerd about video games and likes to catalogue and take pictures of them. While he sleeps, I make videos about his collection because he's too lazy to do it himself. Last summer, my master went to Osaka on holiday. I already did a video on the Switch games he bought there. But now let's look at the PlayStation games he bought while he was there. There are quite a few, so let's take a look, shall we? The Gun Shooting is a gun game set in the African continent in a near future. Unfortunately, you only shoot robots. It's a Japan-only, light gun rail shooter. The intro and cutscenes are only in Japanese, but the ending is in English. Either way, the story is not really important. The point of the game is to blow things up. The game is dumb and simple, and not that difficult, but my master thought it was entertaining enough for a simple game. Fun if you like rail shooters. Jumping Flash is a first-person platforming game. You play as a robotic rabbit named Robert who must explore each section of Crater Planet to retrieve missing jet pods, stop the villain Baron Aloha, and save the world from being destroyed. This is a pretty old game for the PlayStation, and some people may find the gameplay difficult. There are time limits in each level, and there are plenty of times you will miss what you are trying to jump to because it's hard to judge the distance. If you're willing to put in some time and effort, it's a fun game. Parappa the Rapper is a rhythm music game in which you press buttons in time with the music. It's a game that features multiple rap songs, although they are unusual in that they aren't about bitches, hoes, or any gun violence. The songs are light, fun, and catchy. So much so in fact, that my master actually owns the physical soundtrack. In addition, they actually use proper English despite the characters being dogs, moose, and onions. In other words, better English than actual rappers. This was remastered for the PS4 as well. But no matter how you do it, this is absolutely worth tracking down and playing. Berserk, Millennium Falcon Arc. Chapter of the Holy Demon War is a PS2 game that was only released in Japan. It's based on the manga called Berserk from Japan, and the game adapts parts of the Black Swordsman arc. If you are already familiar with the manga, you might be able to muddle through this. Why did my master buy a copy of this when he can't understand it? And there's a perfectly serviceable fan translation. It's a hack and slash game where you kill monsters with an obscenely large sword that is ridiculous and phallic. It's a good Berserk game, but it does get repetitive occasionally as there's not much variety in the gameplay. Ortachi Game Center, aka Our Family Game Center, is a pretty cool Japan-only compilation of 19 older arcade games. They include games such as Akamaju Dracula, Burger Time, Contra, Crazy Climber, Mooncrester, Sonic Wings, and Yi Are Kung Fu. Of the 19 games, the last two, Thunder Cross, 1988, and Trio the Punch, 1990, were previously never released on home platforms at the time of the compilation's release. It comes with a soundtrack CD and a CD of playthroughs of the games to watch. You don't really need to know a lot of Japanese to play this game. It's a pretty awesome collection if you can track it down. Simple 2000 Volume 3, aka Maxed Out Racing in PAL Regions, is a racing game based on Japanese car modifications known as Boso Zoku style, where an old crappy car is given a comically exaggerated body kit and ridiculously long exhaust pipes. There are only two race types: a one-on-one rival challenge where you have to beat another car over a race of 3 laps, and a 3-lap time trial where you have to beat an overall time. The problem is the controls are kind of shit and the cars are very twitchy and hard to control. Simple 2000 Volume 7 aka Police Chase in PAL Regions is a game in which you go on missions to protect limousines from gangs of thugs on motorbikes and in vans. So it's like Chase HQ, minus the chase, but with escort missions. If the limo reaches its destination, you succeed, but while you're playing, the game doesn't actually tell you how far you are from the goal, which is annoying. It is nice to play a game where you actually do what police are supposed to do, openly kill people on the street and shoot guns in public indiscriminately. PS2 Simple 2000 Volume 56. The survival game is a low-rent first-person shooter. This is a very simple airsoft/paintball game, which means that in every mode it's one hit and you're out. It's uncomplicated, short, has no replay value once it's finished, and the story is in Japanese, so it's hard to understand unless you speak it. It's got a cool jazz soundtrack though, again, not an essential import. PS2 Simple 2000 Volume 108, The Nippon Tokashibutai. In the game, you play as a police officer in the Japan Special Forces, fighting terrorists in places such as an airliner, a bank, and the premier's residence. The objectives are to kill the bad guys and rescue the hostages, and your rating for missions is affected if hostages are killed. This is a kind of low-rent Metal Gear Solid. It's okay, but not essential as an import. The Last Guy is a simple but addictive game for the PS3. You are in a city that has been overrun with zombies, much like how modern cities have been overrun with diversity. The game uses high-resolution satellite imagery from Google Earth to render real-world cities, and you traverse the cities as a sort of maze. The goal is to travel throughout these cities, find people and take them to safe zones. Sort of like Choplifter, but it's played from a top-down perspective and it's filled with the undead. On the other hand, rescuing people and taking them to safe zones would be called white flight nowadays. The gameplay is easy, but has you continually wanting to play one more time to see if you can beat your record and get a higher score. Fun and recommended. RPG Golf is a simple RPG that desperately wants to be a Zelda game. You play as Aaron, who is trying to unlock all 54 holes with her driver, Clubby. There is combat, which you start out pretty weak at, dungeons, like in Zelda, pixelated graphics and a pretty weak story. The golf game itself is pretty solid though, and the game is relatively short, so it doesn't wear out its welcome. Not an essential import, but grab it if you can find it on sale. Stalker. Legends of the Zone Trilogy is a collection of Stalker games for the PS4. A few crybabies whined about these games being put on PS4 because it impugned the purity of the PC versions. Those people are wankers and should be forcibly prevented from reproducing to spare the world from their retardation. The trilogy is Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat. In the game, you wake up with amnesia after a car crash. You are tasked with killing someone named Strolok. You perform tasks to get clues to their location. This is a creepy first-person shooter set in Russia. It's tough, and you die a lot, at least at first. The game performs fairly well on a PS4 and it's not unreasonably buggy. It performs better on a PS5 though, and this is a worthwhile purchase if you haven't played it before. But you'll have to import this, as it's a Japan-only release. This is the Centennial Case, a Shijima story. It's an FMV, visual novel mystery game from Square Enix of all companies, which revolves around an investigation behind the cursed history that has befallen the Shijima family for a century. The Shijimas hold a long history of suffering a death in the family once every decade, and most of the game revolves around solving some sort of murder. Haruka Kagami, a best-selling mystery novelist, is asked by her colleague, Eiji Shijima, to investigate his family's history upon receiving an invitation to a special succession ceremony that his family conducts every 100 years. The visuals are of very high quality, both in production and in acting. The soundtrack is also excellent. After investigating, you go to a second stage in Haruka's head to put the pieces of the mystery together. This part can be a little slow and tedious at times due to having to scroll through multiple menus while you're trying to solve the mysteries. Overall though, my master thinks this is an interesting and original game, and it's too bad this was only released physically in Japan. Fantavision 202X is a remake of the PS2 game. It's another rhythm game in which you create fireworks. You still have to use a cursor to mark and explode at least 3 dots, which in this case symbolize rockets of the same color to collect points. Rockets that change color can be combined with any color and thus bring different colors together. Fantavision 202X rewards precise gameplay, beautiful and long combinations, and offers you plenty of opportunities to increase your high score in the respective stage. My master never played the original, so he enjoyed the game for what it was, although there's no new content added from the original. So this release is pretty bare bones. Not essential but an interesting curiosity, a weird choice for a remaster. Gungrave Gore is an interesting game. It's a sequel to the PS2 game Gungrave Overdose, and it still feels like one, for better or worse. A straightforward, throwback action game in which you kick ass. You play as Grave, trying to stop the spread of a drug in Scumland. It's a little like Doom 2016 in that you constantly need to keep moving and shoot everything. There's a charge shot, which is a bit clunky and superfluous because you are constantly getting shot. The game is interesting because it's been completely updated since its initial launch, and the gameplay has been rebalanced and altered to readjust the difficulty. Some time limits and QTS are gone, and the platforming is a little less brutal. Reviews of this when it came out were kind of brutal, but it's worth checking out now as it feels like almost a completely different game. IB is a remake of an RPG Maker horror game from 2012. The remake has new, redone art and a new soundtrack. You play as IB, a young girl who gets lost in a creepy, mysterious art gallery after her parents disappear. You inspect the area around you, discovering items and disarming traps to find your way out of the strange gallery. If you like games like Yomawari, you'll probably enjoy this. Radurgi 2 is a vertical scrolling shmup, and is a sequel to the original Radurgi. My master played this at Tokyo Game Show in 2023, and was quite excited to get this. Unfortunately, it's only in Japanese. It has a cool cel-shaded style that stands out and is quite striking. Your ship evolves in various ways to help you, and you have several attacks with different bullets and even swords. It comes with a port of the original Radurgi, which is pretty cool. If you like shmups, and are willing to make an effort to learn how to play, this is a definite import. Star Ocean. The Second Story R is a remake of the original Star Ocean 2 on the PS1. You play as one of 2 characters, either Claude or Rena, and are investigating the Sorcery Globe, a meteorite that crashed into the planet after Claude was transported to it. It has redone graphics in the style of games like Octopath Traveler, faster combat, new voices and rearranged music. Why did my master buy the Japanese version? Because it comes with English and doesn't have that stupid download required on the cover that North American versions do. If you're an RPG fan, grab this. Yakuza Like a Dragon Gaiden is a stupid name change for this series, according to my master. This is called Gaiden because it's a side story. It's set between Yakuza 6 and 7 and explains what happens to Kiryu after the end of Yakuza 6. My master is only on Yakuza 5, so he hasn't played this yet, but he is looking forward to it. The Dokodemo Kanji Quiz Japan is a kanji learning game designed for Japanese players. The title translates to Anywhere Kanji Quiz Japan, emphasizing its portability and accessibility. The game features a quiz-style format, challenging players to identify and write various kanji characters. My master bought this to help improve his kanji, but he is a lazy ass who almost never studies, even though he lives in Japan. What a lazy ass. Princess Crown is a beat-em-up game originally on the Sega Saturn and ported to the PSP. Once again, this is a Japan-only game. Why does my master keep buying games he can't understand when his Japanese isn't good enough? You play as Queen Gradriel de Valendia, as she embarks on a quest to prevent the resurrection of the demon Lord Lalva. Unfortunately, the true ending is only available on completion of all story routes. There are no fan translations for either the Saturn or PSP versions, so good luck with that. It's a 2D side-scrolling action role-playing game developed by George Kamitani, who also developed games such as Grim Grimoire, Odin's Sphere, Maromasa, and Dragon's Crown. You know, the one that made Jason Schreier cry and prompted George to reveal Jason's sexuality. Fucking hilarious. Well, those are the games my master bought. My master thinks the PS5 actually has some games. Next time, I'm going to compile what my master thinks the best and worst of 2024 are, so please look forward to it.